This program is designed to provide general information with regards to the subject matters covered. This information is given with the understanding that neither the hosts, guests, sponsors, or station are engaged in rendering any specific and personal, medical, financial, legal, counseling, professional service, or any advice. You should seek the services of competent professionals before applying or trying any suggested ideas.
Good morning, true seekers and true crime junkies. Welcome back to another episode of Hit the Road Jack, Finding the Zodiac. I'd like to welcome to the show today, Nolan Del Campo.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning. And Harriet Suchet.
Yes, good morning again.
Good morning.
It's going to be a great show.
It will be. So, in the top of the topics these days, obviously, is the election that is coming up. And while I won't deal with politics, I'll definitely have some conversations about some of the measures. Have you guys voted yet? Are you voting by mail or in person?
I drop off my ballot.
I voted by mail.
I did too. So I had myself some confusion because there was a couple measures on the ballot for repairing schools. And one was statewide, one was more local in the San Juan Unified School District. And I thought to myself, like, why are they doubling down on us? Wasn't the lottery and 2% of those proceeds supposed to be going to schools?
Mm-hmm.
Whatever happened to that? Is that just like a misnomer that nobody pays attention to anymore? Because I'm pretty sure there's millions, if not billions of dollars going through that system.
Yeah, it's mismanagement. Lack of accountability.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. Maybe people even forgot that was kind of the gist of California accepting the lottery. And I remember it plain as day from back in the day when they said they were going to bring it into
it wouldn't have passed if not.
Right.
Yeah, we would have approved it if it wasn't going to benefit the schools.
So where is this money going to is my question. Go ahead, Harriet.
Well, I was going to say, I remember it was designed to make people feel not guilty for gambling, that it was such a good thing was going for the schools.
Right? Huh. Well, now I question that since they're hitting us up for more money. And I think something like, was it a $10 billion bond or something that they were asking for? That we were going to, as Americans, have to pay back $500 million a year for 30 to 40 years?
I said no to all of the lacking in common sense propositions.
Okay, so let's talk about the other lacking in common sense, the making clean water. I think we talked about this on the podcast a few months ago where we were talking about ass-to-mouth water, where they're literally going to take and recycle. I'm not kidding, Nolan. Juan, you can chime in on this if you would like, but this already exists in place like Texas. They're attempting to bring it here to California. And if you don't read that measure thoroughly for what it's worth, they are literally talking about chemically treating toilet water to make it drinkable. I'm a little disgusted.
A big no.
It
took years of health and sanitation. The long story is 1 year of health and sanitation and business management before I got back into McDonald's, the fast food place. And then every day we practice health and sanitation. Trust me, that is a big fat no. There are reasons why you use it for your lawns or something else. You do not try to reconstitute it into something for your system. No, no, no.
Well, it's just more chemicals they're putting into our bodies. Juan says California's gray water code is found in Chapter 15 of the California Plumbing Code as of 2017. Previously, it was in Chapter 16. Under the current code, washing machine systems can be constructed without a permit in single-family homes, 1 or 2 units, so long as 13 guidelines are followed. See below. Other types of systems require a permit in the state. So obviously, they're asking for voters to go ahead and approve this particular measure. And what I read it to mean is that they were going to literally be recycling water. And who knows if it's gray water. I just, my brother sent me a text some months ago saying, I hear California's getting ass to mouth water. I'm like, what?
There's already gray water. It's prevalent, like golf courses use it and different things like that it's used for. I think my buddy had a hot tub and he used gray water for his hot tub because the temperature was hot enough.
I don't know. No. There is never hot enough.
But it's gray water. It's different than wastewater. It's not.
So, but it's so what?
But there's still germs that float around in that water. There's reasons why they're going to put all those chemicals to try to kill all those germs. See, so they use the word try. That's why they'll say 99%. There's, still 1% or more is going to cause problems. It's a big.
What about the side effects of the chemicals themselves?
The chemicals, and then your skin is the largest organ on your body. So bless your friend's heart for wanting to submerge himself into his water. Juan says yes. California allows the recycling of gray water for non-potable uses such as irrigating landscapes and flushing toilets and urinals. Gray water is wastewater from bathtubs, showers, washing machines, and other sources that haven't come into contact with toilet waste. But what does that mean in the end with the ass to mouth part?
No, they're trying to go beyond gray water, I think is what they're doing.
I think so. Well, and there was some talk quite some time ago about being able to recycle salt water and remove the salinity from it so that we could use that as a plausible water source. And I feel like the companies that were capable of doing this got shut down, but this would be great in the LA area.
Yeah, make them do it, not us.
All right, one more measure before.
Let Leonardo DiCaprio drink the poop and pee water. He's rich enough.
Aw, don't say that about Leonardo. I actually got to see him in one of his filmings with Sean Penn, and the movie hasn't come out yet, but he's much bigger in person than I ever believed he was on screen. That was short. I'm going to move on from that. The other measure was the unconstitutional slavery of prison inmates.
Yeah,
these individuals are involuntary servitude. Like, these people are mad they're being made to work for their keep. I just don't get it. That was a big fat no too. I'm sorry. You blew it.
I would prefer to be busy. If you're going to be locked up, why just rot in a cell? Why not get outside and mow a lawn or something?
Right, and don't they receive some type of a? Go ahead, Harriet. Sorry.
I just wanted to say real quick, that's a part of paying your debt back to society. And then they earn a few cents or a few bucks on the side for their cigarettes or whatever.
Oh, okay, I was just going to say that.
Yeah.
Tiny, sums, like $2 a day, something like that.
Well, whatever. They're getting something on. Yeah, they're getting something on top of their care. They have a place to sleep at night. They never have to worry about laying in a gutter or under a bridge. They have food, albeit maybe not the greatest food, but they're still getting something in their belly every single day. They have to be supplied with toilet paper and hygiene products and clothing and washing their clothes, all these things that many people don't even or aren't even capable of taking for granted that are living on the streets. So, yep, big fat no. Anyways, all right, let's move on. Back to the Zodiac. We left off last week on the Girl Scout murders, and I left off at the point where it said shortly after the discovery of the bodies of the Girl Scouts, Governor David Boren ordered a task force of Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigation agents and highway troopers to assist the Mays County authorities in the investigation. Governor Boren also bloodhounds from Pennsylvania to help track down the killer or killers of the 3 little Girl Scouts. I wanted to bring up and mention that we are talking about right now Jack Terrence leaving Cotton, Minnesota. And of course, we know that his track record is to leave before he brings the family to go hunt out a house. So I say that based on proximity of Oklahoma and Texas, which we know that not only does Jack have proximity in a P.O. box in the 80s, at least in 1980, when he is inherited or a beneficiary to a will, they are listing a P.O. box for him in Oklahoma. So I have no idea how long he had this P.O. box. Dennis said that he used to go to this particular P.O. box and obtain marijuana that he could then sell. So he was definitely still working within the realm of drugs and everything else. I see you laughing over there, Nolan. But I like to point
a lot of things.
He was into a lot of things. So this could be, and because of proximity and from Minnesota back down to Texas, if Jack was officially scouting out a new place to take the family, he would have been on his own while he was doing this. So it says 3 days after the brutal slayings, the hunt for evidence moved less than a mile west of Camp Scott to the 110-acre ranch of 58-year-old Jack Schroff. The hunt moved because the bloodhounds led the lawman to his home and pond. Lawmen searched for a murder weapon and other possible evidence. During the search, officers found a roll of black duct tape and rope. The evidence matched the items found on the 3 little Girl Scouts, owner of the farm. Several rocks, a tire tool, and a crowbar were discovered at the ranch, but the items were not connected with the slayings. Detectives found a footprint that matched the print in the death tent at Camp Scott. Mr. Schroff submitted to a lie detector test and passed. Camp director Barbara Day said she knew that the camp had received several threatening notes. I want to see these notes. These are the things that we look for in these crimes. So maybe we can start doing a search for these notes, Harriet, and see what we find.
Okay.
The notes claim that 4 little girls would be killed. Also, she said the camp had been burglarized several weeks before the camp opened, but she never considered the notes or the burglaries to be serious. Now, I only want to bring this up in regards to John Benet Ramsey because there were items found in the family home in Charlevoix, Michigan, which we know that Jack has a picture of the nuclear power plant billboard, which is 5 miles from Charlevoix, Michigan. And it's actually in, the power plant is actually in Charlevoix, but it specifically says 5 miles ahead. So he's taken a picture of this particular billboard during snow time for whatever reason. So this may possibly be another one of his entrance or exits. But not only was the house supposedly broken into, and items such as rope and what was left in the Charlevoix house, do you recall, Harriet?
Just a ligatures and tape. That's all I think that's all I can read. Yeah.
So this did happen inside the home while they were gone. So we do see this break-in. We know that there was a note left behind, or at least a ransom note, quite like the Susan Degnan, another 6-year-old little girl, where a ransom note that was never intended to be a ransom note because the little girl was already dead. So there were some consistencies in here, and that's what made me put this into the presentation. It says the task force polygraphed many suspects and all passed. Also, Ben Woodward, ranger and custodian at Camp Scott, was polygraphed. He passed. On June 24th, local, county, and state lawmen launched a massive air and ground search. Although lawmen would not say how they linked their investigation to the prime suspect, they looked for a convicted rapist, Jean Leroy Hart. Kelly, I had in parentheses here, so I'm not sure why. Mays County authorities charged Hart with 3 separate counts of first-degree murder in connection with the brutal slayings of Lori Lee Farmer, Michelle Goose, and Doris Denise Milner. Jean Leroy Hart was convicted on October 14th, 1966 on 2 counts of first-degree rape and kidnapping. On March 16th, 1969, Hart was paroled from the Granite State Penitentiary. He was sent to McAllister State Penitentiary, where he would serve 40 to 140 years on a charge of rape, 2 counts of kidnapping, and 2 counts of burglary. So if he got, let's see here, 140 years on this charge in 1969, how does he become a suspect? It says in 1973, Jean Leroy Hart and 2 other prisoners hacksawed their way out of the Mays County Jail. Lawman found the other 2 prisoners, but Hart, a Locust Grove native, had remained free since the jailbreak. Even though he was convicted rapist, no one looked for him. While at the Mays County Jail, Hart had been awaiting a post-conviction hearing. So here we again have a rapist and kidnapper, but that doesn't necessarily mean that he's a killer. And does the handwriting match his? There we need to ask that. On June 24th, 1977, Locust Grove natives spotted a man who resembled Hart running from a cave near where the 3 Girl Scouts had been slain. Let's talk about caves, Harriet.
Yeah, the Zodiac cave in Lake County that's been plugged up as soon as they found stuff in there, like newspapers and all kinds of stuff.
Articles, everything.
80s.
Yes.
Yeah, they plugged up everything.
And Jack actually had indicated that there was a particular point in time when he didn't have a place to live, that he was actually living in caves. So let's see.
That would be the ones.
That would be the ones. So it says he was supposedly armed with a and running from the cave, with a 20 gauge shotgun and a 22 caliber rifle. He had supposedly stolen these guns from Jack Schroff's farm. At the cave, local county and state lawmen searched for Jean Leroy Hart. The lawmen searching in the wooded area had thousands of ticks crawling on them. When they got inside the cave, lawmen found no ticks. The lawmen's theory was that Hart had used Indian medicine to ward them off. On a cave wall, lawmen found a written message. It was said that the person who killed the Girl Scouts had been living in the cave since the murders. The person who wrote the message called the lawmen fools. Oh my gosh, you guys.
I'd love to see that wall message.
I would love to see all these messages. And this was, of course, Wikipedia. So and this was back in 2013. So who knows if it's been updated since. The Oklahoma Girl Scout murders is an unresolved crime in rural Mays County, Oklahoma. On a rainy late spring night in 1977, 3 girls aged 8, 9, and 10 were raped and murdered and their bodies left in the woods near their tent at a summer camp. Although the case was classified as solved when Jean Leroy Hart, a local jail escapee with a history of violence, was arrested and stood trial for the crime, he was acquitted. Look at that. Go figure. 30 years later, authorities conducted a new DNA testing, but the results of these proved inconclusive as the samples were too old. The history. In 1977, Camp Scott was in its 49th year as a keystone of the Tulsa-based Magic Empire Girl Scout Council. Situated along the confluence of Snake Creek and Spring Creek near State Highway 82, the 410-acre compound was located between Locust and Tahlequah. Jean Leroy Hart had been at large since escaping 4 years earlier from Mays County Jail. He had been convicted of raping and kidnapping 2 pregnant women. So he's raping women, not children, as well as 4 counts of first-degree burglary. Hart was raised about a mile from Camp Scott. Less than 2 months before the murders, during an on-site training session, a camp counselor found her belongings ransacked. Her donuts were stolen, and inside the empty donut box was a disturbing handwritten note. The author vowed to murder 3 campers. So it went from 4 to 3. But here we have more notes. Again, things I'd like to see. The director of that camp session treated the note as a prank, and it was discarded. June 12, 1977 was the first day of camp. Around 6 p.m., a thunderstorm hit, and the girls huddled in their tents. Among them were Tulsans Lori Lee Farmer, 8, and Doris Denise Milner, 10, along with Michelle Goose, 9, of Broken Arrow, a suburb of Tulsa. The trio were sharing tent number 8 in the camp's Kiowa unit, named for a Native American tribe. The killings. The following morning, a counselor made the discovery of a girl's body in the forest. Soon it was discovered that all 3 girls in tent number 8 had been killed. Now, again, how would they know that 3 were in the tent? There's got to be some serious sitting around waiting and watching to know, because there was supposed to be a 4th person in this tent with these 3 little girls. And we know that the suspect evidently peeked into several tents. Was he specifically looking for one that only contained 3 girls so that it could match the note? We may never know. The aftermath, Camp Scott was evacuated and would never reopen. So I see that these kind of events happen throughout these crimes when PG&E wants to blast a pipeline through.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I wonder what became of the camp. It was huge, right? Hundreds of acres, right?
410 acres, it says. So what was the purpose? What was the need? And why did they need that camp to go away?
Housing?
What's that, Harriet?
Development. I just said real estate development, something much more lucrative. So many reasons why.
Right. Well, in the Ketty Cabin murders, PG&E ended up blasting a pipeline right through that once it became a ghost town after the murders. And we know that PG&E being related to GE and that being right up Jack's alley. So it says Jean Leroy Hart, a Cherokee, was arrested within a year at the home of a Cherokee medicine man and tried and tried in March 1979. Although the local sheriff pronounced himself 1,000% certain the man on trial committed the crimes, a local jury acquitted Hart. Two of the families later sued the Magic Empire Council and its insurer in a $5 million alleged negligence action. The civil trial included discussion of the threatening note, as well as the fact that the tent number 8 lay 86 yards from the counselor's tent. The defense suggested that the future of summer camping in general hung in the balance. In 1985, by a 9-3 vote, jurors sided with the camp. By this time, Hart, as a convicted rapist and jail escapee, he still had 305 of his 308 years left to serve in Oklahoma State Penitentiary. Wow, that's a ridiculous amount of time. In June 1979, during a jog inside the jail, he collapsed and died of an apparent heart attack. Richard Goose, the father of one of the victims, went on to help the state legislature pass the Oklahoma Victims Bill of Rights. Goose also helped found and then chaired the Oklahoma Crime Victims Compensation Board, which would later gain prominence for its Mura Fund in the wake of the Oklahoma City bombing. Another parent, Sherry Farmer, went on to found the Oklahoma chapter of Support Group Parents of Murdered Children. Oh, anything to add to that?
I grow suspicious of these suddenly, becoming these representatives of these orgs. The only one that I found that actually ends up being a good helping missing children, etc., happens to be the Kevin Collins Foundation. All the others are seemingly, especially, oh God, what Walsh and them got into. They had good intentions, but they end up really not being the best. So I'm very skeptical. That's what I have to add.
So you're saying it's kind of like the 2% from the lottery that's supposed to go to schools?
Yeah, it's something like that. But so I'm hoping that I find some really good stuff about these organizations. Lately, I go in with feeling good about what I'm doing, and then I come out saying, "Damn, these people are shitty." So,
right. Well, I think
so blunt.
Yeah. And these could very well be, I mean, honestly speaking, we're talking June that these murders happened. We know that Jack is back in Texas, and Oklahoma is just a hop, skip, and a jump for him at that point. 1977, Jack goes back to California. So we discussed earlier that Nora had left Jack. That means there's this small period in 1977 after he moves the family to Texas. She may have left him over the beating of the man in the mobile home, in which case she wanted to remove the children from that experience. Either way, we know that she definitely left him and went back to California. And then Jack returns to California to get her, and then returns back to Texas until 1978. And September 11th of 1977, we have Lou Ellen Burleigh in Pleasant Hill, disappeared on her way to an interview at a Pleasant Hill shopping center on Contra Costa Boulevard. I did not find her on the murder maps for Sandy Betts, so there may be a plausibility that this is another one of Philip's victims and not necessarily the Zodiacs. But it is followed by pictures developed in November of 1977 where we see Chubbs, which is Flova's brother, the one she brought in to take over the ranch back in 1944 when Jack's father was killed in the tractor accident. He's getting married, and he lives out his life, I believe, in Seguin, Texas. And these pictures were then processed in November of 77. So they clearly occurred at some point before that, which would again show that Jack was in Texas. On December 2nd of 1977, Daniel J. Guyton at Scott Air Force Base in Bellevue, Illinois. Now, this is a bit off, but again, just because of the type of murder and that there's writing involved, it became an interest of mine. He was shot to death in his patrol jeep. Guyton's arms were too short to reach the trigger on the shotgun, so it wasn't a suicide, but there was a suicide note that was left. I would love to see this. There were 2 shells found.
I'd love to see that note too.
Right?
Yes.
And if there's 2 shells found, how many times can you shoot yourself?
Yeah. Yeah.
It says that Guyton was actually involved in drug smuggling investigation that other U.S. airmen were allegedly involved with. And we know that Jack's last stint was as an airman. So that suicide note would be excellent to find too. So maybe some research. I don't know if we're actually going to be able to get it, but these are so old, we might even be able to make a FOIA request for it. The next thing I had on my list was the Brian and Katie Maggiore out of Sacramento because of the letter that the Zodiac writes in regards to shooting somebody up by the freeway, but that doesn't occur until 1986. So again, it didn't fall in line chronologically, and they have now actually convicted D'Angelo. Yep, D'Angelo for it. And that brings us to a FOIA file that actually had an article from, let's see if I can see who this is, San Francisco Examiner on January 30th of 1978. This proves what I've been saying to everybody, that the Zodiac was silent in California the whole time that Jack was gone. And it says that Zodiac, 4 years later, what happened to the killer? Who kept the city in terror? On the night of October, well, I don't need to relive the Zodiac stuff. Let's see, blah, 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 within minutes. The description was similar to that of the man seen by officers in the squad car, a white male, 35 to 40 years of age, 5'10", 180 to 200 pounds, barrel-chested with light-colored hair, a crew cut, glasses, and a blue waist-length zippered jacket. Dozens of police searched the area, including the Julius Kahn playground at the edge of the Presidio. Now, he claimed to have been in the park, right? When they were searching for him?
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
Or Presidio, yeah.
You're right. So now we have 1978, almost 10 years after the crimes, a recount of the actual description of the individual. There's no way Arthur Lee Allen had a crew cut if you've seen this man's head.
Yeah, he was bald.
He was bald as the day was long. There was no way, no absolute way. Let's see. So this article, after his letter, was it? Okay, so after this, his letter indicated 37 victims on January of 1974, and a few more letters were mailed, which means there were likely more victims during this year. Jack and family had moved to Cotton, Minnesota, then to Austin, Texas, and then I think around 78 or 79, we're going to see their presence back in California again. Another part of the article says, "We are certain he killed at least 6 and wounded 2 in the late 1960s, Tashi said. There are many unsolved homicides, but there is no reason to attribute any to the Zodiac." Okay. I don't know why. It would seem uncharacteristic for an egotistical killer who taunted police with ghoulish and sometimes coded accounts of his deeds to depart this earth without a parting shot. And Zodiac has yet to explain most of the 37 murders he claims. So again, he's saying that there are several other unsolved murders, no reason to account them for the Zodiac's doings, which doesn't make any sense to me because clearly he's claiming 37, and we see that there are many more unsolved murders that kind of fit in with the scheme. We did have that Paul Stein's shirt is said to be mailed with confession letter and the letter to Belli. We did verify that. I've seen black and white striped, blue and white striped, and green and white striped shirts. I think that the true color of the shirt was green and white, correct, Harriet?
I believe so.
Another portion of this, so total victims, 37 after a 3-year silence. Danny Reynolds had gone to CYA for that time and was released in 74. Police believe that Zodiac has an eye problem because he wore glasses even under his hood. There are also indications that he had some connection to the military. I did not see Arthur Lee Allen with glasses ever. Has anyone?
No. And the glasses that Jack wore, we'll have to dig up how I found that out, are polychromatic glasses is what they were using for those who are working with atomic energy because of what the stuff would do to their eyes. So then he did have they were prescription, but polychromatic. They would turn dark in the sun, and then wearing them at night, they would turn light at night. Very
so like a welder's glasses almost, right?
Yeah.
Like a welder's hood that would once the light.
They probably cost a lot of money. The government was paying for it. That's what I understand. So he was working for the government. But that makes sense. Mm-hmm.
Yes, it does. Now, this is many reasons why I've ruled out several suspects. You throw a suspect at me that isn't wearing glasses when the strong belief is that the Zodiac killer required glasses to see, then you've lost me already. First off, if they're not wearing glasses, then I'm just going to count you out and push you away. It says he wore a military type crew cut or short hair. His pants had pleats at a time when that cut was not fashionable. He committed several of his murders in the Vallejo area near Mare Island and one near the Presidio, and his messages showed some knowledge of cryptography. I wanted to talk about those pleated pants because not only is that something that's seen in Suspect Zero, the movie that I talk about that kind of recounts some interesting government work, but at the same time, we see Jack in 1975 in pleated pants again. So he was unfashionable for a very long time. Tashi said he leans toward the theory that Zodiac may have been connected with the Navy at one time. We agree. In addition to the fact that he wore a Navy-type windbreaker jacket for the Stein killing, the detective notes 3 codes were used in his messages and some had nautical signs. Navy again. One sign is used by weathermen and Navy people. Now, we know that Jack was also a ham radio operator, which many of your weathermen actively use the ham radio. In consultation with psychologist, Tashi also has come to the conclusion that the Zodiac is a high school graduate with a giant ego locked in an inconspicuous identity. I feel he probably has a menial job and is very lonely, not around many loved ones. We can kind of recount that as the way he treated Dennis and the families that he did not consider to be loved ones. He was only an 8th grade graduate, but had many different classes afterwards through the military. And as far as not being around anybody who is loving him or being very lonely, I think that the Zodiac stated that in his letters himself. I get lonely when somebody doesn't pay attention to me. Tashi,
yeah, I see it a million times. How he's feeling, definitely.
Right. Tashi believes that Zodiac has not killed since 1969. Okay, Tashi. Although the mystery man increased his total to 37 on January 30th of 1974 after nearly a 3-year silence, which is why we talk about that time that Danny Reynolds went to CYA. Jack was, he was not allowed to own guns for at least a year. See, at that time, Zodiac's ego was apparent as he planned The Exorcist as bad comedy, although it caused many people to vomit. One theory that, and I'm not reading this entire article, you guys can go back to read it. I just wanted to point out some specific points. One theory is that he has been in and out of prison, jails, or mental institutions. And we get to see him say that I'm still alive, I'm not in the hospital, and I'm not in jail. A janitor inadvertently found a poem scratched in a library study desk and later proved to be written by the Zodiac. So these are all some interesting takes, just really reconnecting the Riverside murder of Sherry Jo Bates and the Zodiac as late as 1978. They are still putting these cases together. And that brings us to a new letter. Let's see where we're at. We got plenty of time. And it shows that on April 24th of 1978, the San Francisco Chronicle printed a handwritten note, "That city pig Tashi." They said they collected a DNA sample that was obtained from it, but they said it was not an authentic Zodiac letter. So I, of course, thought that was really interesting to talk about. Not only because we're going to see another one they claim in 1987 that contains pretty much the same linguistics. But if you were to actually compare this letter to other letters by the Zodiac, we're going to look to see how those things compare. So this letter in this time frame, perhaps also from the Zodiac, was a demand that Washington Post Classified run this ad as a secret message. "Daniel, please call home." And that was what was that an anagram from? Do you remember, Harriet?
No, the one that the Daniel, please call home. I'm currently working on that one. So
that's the one I sent you. And you did give I did find that.
I haven't finished that one because that's from 1978, but it's yielding information about the OCCK, and it's meant for Jimmy Carter.
Well, you did send me I thought you did send me a solve on it. I have a solve right here, 1978 In Control of All Things letter. It's a
that's the one. Yeah, that's the In Control.
Okay.
Yep, we got that one. Let's do that one.
Okay. Yeah, that's where we're at right now. So basically on July 11th of 1978, an Herb Cain letter, same stamps as the Atlanta, Georgia child killer, which is the Liberty Bell. And Harriet has a lot to say on that we're about to get to. Believed to be a hoax letter that Tashi supposedly wrote, but I believe that he was cleared and he denies having written it. So an examination is in order. FBI called this authentic in a cable dated 7/12 and 7/27 of 1978. A warning is being given to the FBI examiner's department in order to prepare them for any statements to the media. So I also started collecting stamps from all the letters to see if there was a consistency. And the Liberty Bell at this point in time in 1978 is going to be next connected to the Atlanta, Georgia child killer cases where the Liberty Bell was also used. In an article, it says, to editor, from the postmark and the zip code numbers, 940, it was determined that the letter was mailed Tuesday from somewhere in either San Mateo County or Santa Clara County. This puts it back in the middle of the San Jose area, which was where we know Jack had family.
Yes.
Go ahead.
No, I'm just saying it's Jack all the way. And I haven't done the envelope yet. So I'm going to be working on that one. That's going to take a while.
Evidently, Jack's daughter, Lana, is actively in San Jose at this point in time going to school. We've seen envelopes where she is writing to her grandparents from an address inside of that area. So not only did she live there, but also Charles, Jack's brother, was living in the San Jose area as well. On April 24th, 1978, the Ern Kane letter is handwritten. He talks about being crack proof. I'm still here. I have always been here. He talks about the blue pigs. Catch me if so let me read this letter. To San Francisco Chronicle, San Francisco, California. Rush to editor. Dear editor, this is the Zodiac speaking. I am back with you. Tell Herb Kane I am here. I have always been here. That city pig Toshi is good, but I am smarter and better. He will get tired, then leave me alone. I am waiting for a good movie about me. Who will play me? I am now in control of all things. Yours truly, obviously with no signature, just a colon. And now he's saying guess next to the Zodiac sign. So there's a couple things that we want to talk about here. And control is one of the big words from the very manipulated and disguised handwriting letter to Melvin Belli. Waiting for a good movie is a theme we're going to start to see pick up from here on out, because there are movies being made, documentaries being made, news reports being made, and he believes they all have it wrong. All the way up to 2002 and 3, where he's writing Tom Voight, stating he will give him the information he needs to make this a top shelf blockbuster hit. And if anybody remembers Blockbuster, it was around, and I'm going to say shortly after 2007, 2008, before they went out of business, at least in California. So again, the linguistics and the consistencies, we have two stamps, and one's placed one direction and one's placed another direction. We know that stamps were a big thing by the Zodiac killer, as Harriet has proven through her solves that stamps mean something to him. So the yours truly also is consistent with Sherry Jo Bates' confession letter, the Dear Draft Board letters, and others. The letter was called a hoax by local authorities, but obviously at a time frame past when the FBI believed that it was actually executed by the Zodiac. So on 4 of 1978, we had a PUC Riverside where a flashlight was found. So evidently I have some information about a murder. I just cannot literally find out I can't figure out which this murder was and who was part of it, but it was in April, which coincides with another communication coming out. Maybe proof that he is still around and that he is still in control. So what I want to do is take a look at the word control in this particular communication and compare that to the control that is found in the Melvin Belli letter. When I look at the forms in this particular letter, it is extremely, if not completely, manipulated, and they attempted to write in perfect copybook form. And even when I looked at the G's in here, we can see that the G's are formed the same way. So I think that this letter is absolutely a shoe-in for being the Zodiac. And we can now look at this through the eyes of Harriet. So you have done a, what was this, a Z408 grill cipher?
Yeah, this is among really early stuff for me. This is like among the top first 30 that I was doing, because I got the date here. The early
because it's in your in your book, The World According to Jack Terrence, and that's one of your first books, right?
Yeah, and it's on page 70 and 71. This one was actually, it took me a day to do, if I remember right, because I was getting that good really quick. So shall I read it to you?
Go ahead. Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Again, it's a Z408 grill cipher. It goes over all the weird dots and blobs and scratched out things that I found in then the cross circle and the guess and the dashes. So it came out as, and I'll read it as broken first, and then because the message is short. It's NYSENRK ERG gal MM die LU P-A-L, which is pal, Hoffa lies with Lass. Or New York Senator Robert Kennedy in emergency room and Giancana gal Marilyn Monroe die. Labor Union pal lies with Labor Union pal Hoffa lies with Lass, which
so that's why we were
saying that he's up in the North OHV for a while in Labor at Lake County,
or maybe in the 80-20, maybe in the Highway 80-20 near Nyack.
No, this is the North OHV for a brief time. Something is going on. Hoffa is and Lass is supposed to be there in parts, not to be too macabre. But there's other solves that were saying this, and I think we've done shows that bring up about the North OHV, which is in Lake County, and also parts of it go into Napa County, which is just a few miles from Lake Berryessa. But
Correct.
Anyways, so he's saying at this time that he's lying with Les where she's at somewhere.
So I wonder, since they only found the skull up in the Nyack area off of Highway 80 and 20, I wonder if there is another shallow grave of bones that have been found, because everybody has to remember the skull of Donna Lass was found in 1986. It wasn't until, January this year, Nolan, that it was discovered that the DNA was a match to Donna Lass?
Yeah, it was earlier this year. And we talked about it in one of the episodes. It was published. There was a story about it in the Sacramento Bee.
And you still never received any responses from any of the investigative reporter or anybody else
No, I called them, left messages, and they never got back to me.
Of course not. They don't want to know the truth, or they don't want us to figure out the truth. One of the two. Anyways, a little assistance goes a long way, guys, to actually closing cases, or at least, and I've always said this, show me where we can exclude Jack, and I will consider that information. Just show me how it can't be him. But nobody's willing to do that, let alone even test, do fingerprints, do the DNA, palm prints, or anything else. They just absolutely refuse to touch this with a 10-foot pole, and it makes no sense when they will give hundreds of hours to the likes of somebody so false as Deborah Perez. So that brings us to another article. New puzzles further muddle Zodiac case. Well-known cop removed last letter a hoax. So this article actually talks about the fact that Tashi was named as a potential forger of this particular letter. But I'm pretty sure that through what I had read, let's see, the last letter was by the real Zodiac, Morrill declared. There is no question in my mind. I've heard they're accusing Tashi of writing them. If Tashi wrote the last one, he's the Zodiac. He wrote them all. Ooh, if I didn't land on the one paragraph in this entire article that just described something that gave me goosebumps off the hook. Now, everybody needs to know that goosebumps is the brain's reward system for being right. All I did was read the very first paragraph in this article, which looks to be at least 16, 17 paragraphs long. It's not even marked on my presentation, guys, but my eyes automatically went to it. So as well as Morrill, I do believe that this letter was 100% written by the Zodiac, and we are being lied to. Just like Arthur Lee Allen, though, right? So
yes,
this last letter that turned up is definitely by the Zodiac. We knew in the past, Morrill said. I examined it. The characters and handwriting are just dead bang the same. What I just said about the Belli letter, it is absolutely exactly what we'd be looking for. Morrill said that what's that?
He's the guy in Sacramento, handwriting expert in Sacramento.
I don't know. That was Pascal. So Terrence Pascal was the document examiner Ian Dennis met with and spoke with in regards to the 1986 letter, which had not been produced for the public, but they all agreed that it was literally a letter from the Zodiac.
But I think he was in Sacramento back at the time of the Zodiac, back in the 70s.
He may very well have been. Yeah,
I believe
or the San Francisco.
No, I think it was in Sacramento.
Main guy, circa 1970s.
It says Morrill said that he, John Shimoda, head of the Postal Service Crime Laboratory in San Bruno and Pleasant Hill handwriting expert David DeGarmo all agreed this last letter was real. Now, some of the stuff that I've read is that Shimoda then tried to come back and state that it wasn't. But here we have news articles stating that all three of these document examiners agreed that this was real. Morrill added, I think Toshi's had too much publicity and some people may not like it. He also deprecated Prouty's expertise. He was in polygraph operations for the San Diego Police Department and had very little experience in this, Morrill said. So evidently this must be the person who's coming out to discount. And why from the San Diego area? Why from LA would you have any concern about handwriting in a case where obviously other document examiners who are far more experienced than you have been working this case the entire time, and all of a sudden you pop in with the voice of reason that it's a fraud? I think something has definitely been going on since at least the 1970s.
Well,
He doesn't even.
Toshi is being put on the hot seat for other reasons. I've done the Doodler cases, which is the Black Zodiac. That's circa 1975, and Toshi's coming up as a really bad guy. So it looks like they're putting him in the hot seat because they can't really, charge him with anything. But he's being run through the mud. So he's getting what he deserves, by the way.
We've not covered the Doodler letters then.
Well, it's all the cases that some of them are on Gray Smith's list, and it just turns out one by one is just anagramming the evidence that was put in the newspapers, and it keeps saying the same things about John Edward Walsh Jr. Toshi is there. They're partying with cocaine, a lot of bad things. So It looks like, in my view, that they're putting him through the ringer because they can't really do anything else. And this is going on for years? So
well, then maybe we should visit those.
What he deserved.
I don't really like to go backwards in my chronology, but I am happy to visit those. If you want to send those over, we'll put them in and maybe make a segment out of those Doodler letters.
Because so many people, they've twisted all these cases in so many parts, every which way, but Sunday, like you say. But anyways, so I just wanted to give that input. Toshi was not the best cop on the planet, okay?
Gotcha.
But, he is what he is.
Well, Morrill goes on to talk about, let's see, who was this? He was deprecated. Where was his name? Morrill added, I think Toshi's had So Prouty is the man he's talking about. And Morrill says he doesn't even have all the material I had. I've caught him wrong 2 or 3 times since I retired to private practice. Morrill said that from now on, he won't work on any Zodiac matters for the San Francisco department. Wow. So Morrill is kicking San Francisco to the curb. Armstrong and Toshi made the first contact with me and I was doing it for them, he said. I feel I'm absolved from doing any more. Sure, I'd like to be the guy who identifies Zodiac, but this is too much. Yeah, you got people infighting in an industry or in a practice like handwriting where they're having disagreements when it should be really clear that we're dealing with the same person. It's, again, something political, and I would, like Morrill, probably step out as well. He says, I'd like to, okay. Maupin said this morning he received a number of letters from Toshi after he made the inspector a figure in his serial. I don't know what that was supposed to mean. Although Toshi used fictitious names, Maupin said he suspected they were from Inspector. I noticed that the margin stops were similar, the same type in the typewriter, and the D's in the signatures were much the same. So evidently they must have busted him trying to create other letters, but typewritten, not he would have been stupid to try and do handwritten letters and copy the Zodiac. I just think that would be idiocy, especially when you're a main player in the actual search for the Zodiac. He said he became suspicious at the last Zodiac letter in April because I saw certain parallels between it and Toshi's fan notes, and it was the only one that mentioned Toshi's name. I felt there were enough evidence there to at least warrant an investigation, and the police apparently did too. So basically, Toshi's writing his own fan notes, not trying to create Zodiac notes.
Something's going on.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
and maybe he fell out of the limelight. He wanted to be back in, so he's creating fan letters, but
Yeah.
these fan letters are definitely not Zodiac letters. So, and the handwritten 1978 letter cannot be compared to a typewritten letter, so there's nothing there to actually, cross compare. He said he and his
Tashi was
co-author.
engaged in some weird behavior. He was an
That's what
oddball.
Harriet's saying.
Oh yeah, he was. He was partying down with some people. I got a whole bunch of stuff. It isn't America's Most Evil, and I think you told me you don't have that book, so I should mail you this huge big book.
Maybe I'll check to see when I get done.
Yeah, because
um,
but anyway, so I'll send it to you. But yeah, he was into some. He was like a lot of cops I'm seeing a lot lately. That you want to believe they're 100% good, but they're angels by day, devils by night. 2 different lives.
right.
Supposedly,
Well, and
Steve McQueen used Tashi's gun in the filming of Bullet. Bullet was filmed in San Francisco in outlying areas. That's I think
true.
Graysmith is one that said that.
if I'm reading this correctly, Maupin is the one. Like I say, he said, let's see, although Tashi used fictitious names, Maupin. So Maupin, who's about to write a book called Tales of the City, I think, Tales of the City,
Right.
is the one that
Maupin.
noticed. And Maupin, and so Maupin, not even being a handwriting expert or otherwise, not even part of law enforcement, as far as I can tell,
He's a
is the one that
columnist.
led. And he's the one that led the police to Tashi being the author of this handwritten note. You're not a handwriting expert, and you certainly aren't going to compare some typewritten matter, linguistics or not. You're not going to juxtapose a handwritten letter to a typewritten letter by any means. But that looks like that's exactly what he's done.
Right. He was a columnist for either the Examiner or the Chronicle. I'm not sure which. Herb Caen was with the Chronicle.
Right. So he said he and his co-author on a New West article about the matter scheduled for publication Monday made a complaint to the police, but he would not say with whom he dealt or when. Maupin denied the current controversy was part of either the New West article or his upcoming book. My ass. That is exactly what that was about. He is going to make news before the release of his new book, because what a better way to advertise and promote a book than cause a... Yeah, sensationalizing. Yes. Maupin denied. Oh, as a matter of fact, the irony about it was that because my book is coming out in August, I was worried people would think I had done this as publicity, he said. You did. And there's your over disclosure. There's your statement of saying, he said, I waited 2 years before acting upon this because I thought David Tashi is a nice guy. I'm sorry for the discomfort this may be causing him and his family. Yeah, sure. The fan letters are a harmless vanity. Of course they were. Maupin said he put a veiled message in his plot line in the serial to let Tashi know he was onto him, but did not pursue it. This story was written by Andrew Curtin and Larry D. Hatfield, and is based on reporting by them, John Jacobs, Malcolm Glover, Baron Mueller, and Nancy Day. A very interesting article, to say the least. What are we at on time? Oh, we're overtime. Oh my gosh. All right, you guys. I thank everybody for being here. This was absolutely a fabulous show. I enjoyed engaging you guys in all of this conversation. You all have a wonderful week, and we are going to see us back live 3 weeks from now.
Happy Halloween, okay?
Thank you. Happy Halloween to everyone else. You all enjoy your holiday. Take care.
No more waiting.
Oh,